Yes, it's Monday, and we all know what that means by now, don't we? Yes, we do indeed. Kevin, hello. I'm going to talk to you about the paranormal. Now, a bit of a change in scenery today, but not too much of a change. Basically, we're not going to have a listener-submitted paranormal experience, and the reason for that will become clear. It's because we've got an extra long Becca's Reddit Corner, and the reason for that is because on the way home from watching the film, which I'm going to review in today's paranormal review, we got a taxi. And in that taxi, the taxi driver told us a ghost story. So we're going to discuss that as part of Becca's Reddit Corner. And it was wonderful. Was it scarier than the film? I don't know. We'll find out. Anyway, how are you all doing? I hope the world is treating you like, I don't know, like a child treats a puppy. And I mean a nice child and a nice puppy, not a naughty child and a naughty puppy. Strokey, strokey, patty, patty, feedy, feedy, that sort of way. And yeah, and your week is going to be a belter. Even if you think it's not, it's only Monday, you can change it, okay? Yeah. So let's begin. How do we begin the show? Well, we begin by saying a thank you to our newest Patreons. And when we do that, we do it by the medium of song. So when you sign up to Patreon, don't know why I've done it in that voice, but when you sign up to Patreon, not only will you support the show, but you will receive two additional Patreon shows each and every week. One of which is me just rambling. As you can tell, I'm quite fond of that. And the other is where we try and keep it paranormal. Now, me and Becca had a really good paranormal-based chat for the upcoming one, the one that's about to be aired the one that's about to be aired this coming Sunday. It was quite deep, quite personal, and then we talk about some churches which are haunted. So it was actually on topic, if you will. And I really enjoyed doing it. So go over to patreon.com/we need to talk about ghosts. And not only do you get all of that, and by the way, genuinely, there's about 500 hours, and this increases every week by about 100. There's at least 300 hours worth of content over there for you to binge at your leisure. Put it on while you paint a house. You could paint many houses with the number of hours of Patreon material over there. Anyway, who signed up to Patreon this week? Well, we have 3 fantastic new Patreons to say thank you to. We have Mark Laurie, R.S. Friedenberg, and Emma McPhee. And this means the guitar is out. And this means I've got a little country number to say thank you. Oh, yeah. Signing up to Patreon means you can listen all day at work. Like Mark Laurie, Emma McPhee, and R.S. Friedenberg. There's over 10,000 hours. Well, that's gone up again. By the time I finish this thank you, there's probably 32,000 hours there. There's not. Don't know what that code was, but what I'm basically trying to say is a big thank you from the bottom of my swinging brick directly to you. Ooh. Ended it on a 7th with some very dodgy falsettos, a dodgy chord thrown in, and also, Kevin, you cannot falsetto out of the name R.S. Friedenberg by going R.S. Friedenberg, because his name or her name isn't R.S. Friedenberg. It's Berg. Anyway, let's get to a film to review, and I think it was inevitable what the film was going to be, so let's review it right now. Yes, it's time for me to review something paranormal so you don't have to review it for yourself. Sounded a bit Welsh there, didn't mean to. Anyway, what we're going to review this week, unsurprisingly to everyone, is The Exorcist Believer. Now, I had the pleasure of watching this on its launch day of Friday the 6th. It should have been Friday the 13th, which would be that's perfect for the Exorcist film. But of course, Taylor Swift and her Swifties got involved and said, no, on Friday the 13th, we'd sooner watch a concert. And I think that's perfectly fine. That long pause was there for a reason. I'll let you make your own minds up why it was there. Anyway, the film. I'm not going to give any spoilers out because who would like to do that? But I will talk about what's in the trailer and also give my opinion on the film. Okay? So there's anything you see in the trailer, if you watch a trailer, that's not a spoiler because it kind of dictates, or not dictates, it gives an inkling of what the film was about. So premise-wise is in the trailer, so we can talk about that. 2 girls go off into the woods. They come out. They think they've been gone 3 hours. They've been gone 3 days, and they're both possessed. Okay, fine. It takes place in the universe of Exorcist 1, if you will, or The Exorcist. So because of that, which I thought was wonderful, I loved the trailer because it harked back to some of the cinematography, if you will, of the first film, like dogs fighting in the street and stuff like this. And I thought it was marvelous as a trailer. It really whet my appetite, and I was so excited for the film. Because it's in the universe of the first film, and you see this in the trailer, Reagan's mum, Kathy McNeil, she makes an appearance in it. I won't say any more than that because, that is spoiler territory. But she does make an appearance in it because one of the nurses who's looking after the 2 girls, who, by the way, is Aunt Lydia from Handmaid's Tale, says, I know someone who's had experience with this. Hence, Kathy McNeil comes in. And I was so excited with it, with the film, the premise, everything, the fact it's in the universe. There were several things that I wasn't happy with the film, if I'm being perfectly honest. I thought it started well. Yeah, there's an interesting thing that I did find, though, where I've sort of had to slap myself on the wrist and say, you don't know as much as you think you know, is in the trailer, there's a bit, it's called The Body and the Blood, like that's a side catch line for the film. You see one of the possessed girls walking up the aisle of a church mass. I think it's like Baptist church, maybe. I don't know, because it's not a priest doing the service. Anyway, walking up the aisle, and she's covered in blood, and she's covered in wine or something, and she's going, the body and the blood, and she's clearly possessed at this point, and she's walking up the aisle of this church. Now, I seen that in the trailer and thought, well, that's a bit over the top because, if you're possessed, your religious iconography makes you go, and all that, as we've seen in The Exorcist. So to be able to enter a church in the first place possessed, I thought, that's a bit of a continuity error. But then I was researching the first episode I'm going to do for the Dark Paranormal Season 13, which is of a possession case. And the demon within this possessed person was so strong, it could even receive Holy Communion or the Eucharist, which is one of the sacraments, if not arguably the most important sacrament, because I know for non-religious people, you're thinking, what? Basically, the Eucharist is where they give out the little pieces of rice paper and say the body of Christ, and you say Amen, and you take it. Or you drink some wine and they say the blood of Christ, and you say Amen. Now, in Catholic tradition, at least, and also any sort of Christian faith where they do the Eucharist, I think it's called transmubigation or something. It's the idea of, prior to that, the priest will put his hand over the rice paper and the wine. And in essence, what he's meant to be doing is bringing down the Holy Spirit. And this transmubigation, or whatever it's called, takes place, and it turns, in theory, the rice paper into the body of Christ, into the flesh of Christ, and the wine into the blood of Christ. So therefore, arguably, it's the most important sacrament. And there are 7 sacraments, like baptism, blah, 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 confession. But arguably, because you're eating Christ, cannibalistically or not, it's the most important. But the demon in this story I'm researching was able to take the Eucharist, was able to eat that, because it was so powerful. So I kind of slapped myself on the wrist and went, okay, but the thing is, not a lot of people know that. But then I thought, not a lot of people will know when they're watching the film that she shouldn't be allowed to enter a church. So, it's a weird one when you're so into the paranormal. I think I expected too much from the film, in all honesty. Brennan put a really good thing up from the Ghost Story guys about it when he watched it. He said he thought it started excellently, and then when it became to The Exorcist, it lost itself. And I understand what he means by that. what I said, because I work in analogy land, is I said what I think it was like. It's like you see a magnificent wardrobe in an IKEA catalogue, right? And you think, I want that. That's the trailer, right? So then I've bought that and I've put it together myself, although the note inside said, get an expert to put this together. So the film's ended up like a wardrobe with back to front doors, but it can still hold clothes. What an analogy, Kevin. What I mean is basically, if you're a huge Exorcist fan and you wanted the sort of canon to continue, you're going to be disappointed. If you are a horror fan and you just want a good scare, you're going to enjoy it. So the wardrobe holds clothes, is what I mean. It does its function. But there are many holes. For example, and it's a bit of it's not really a spoiler, but Pazuzu's not mentioned in it. However, I will say this. I need to rewatch it because I am a strong... Well, when I say I'm a strong believer, what I mean is because you watch it, you can't rewind in a fucking cinema, can you? I mean, I suppose somebody can, but I certainly can't, having paid for a ticket. But I'm pretty sure when I rewatch that in the first half of the film... Now, when you go and watch it, check this out for me, that there is a lot of subliminal background stuff going on. I'm sure of it. I'm sure there's like Shadow Men. I'm sure at one point, and it's not a spoiler, a guy runs through a barn. That doesn't spoil anything, right? Okay. But I'm sure that the word Pazuzu is there in wood, but on the doors, like different letters. But have a look. Tell me if I've just made this up, because I'm only going off the memory of seeing it once, and I do need to rewatch the first half. I thought the first half was excellent. The whole film is good. Don't get me wrong. Do you know if this wasn't in the canon of The Exorcist? You know, if this was called like, I don't know, The Demonic Woods, I'd be like, this film was fucking boss. But because I was so looking forward to it, I couldn't help but feel a little bit let down. My attitude might change when I rewatch it. I might be like, I missed that, I missed that, I missed the other. There's also, and I need to double check this, again, I've watched it once, so I don't know whether I'm talking fact, but there might be at the end credits, not a spoiler, not like a scene where you go, oh, but during the end credits, you know, where it says like, man who fell down the stairs was Jeff. Man who served a pint of lager was Bill, and things like that. One of them, I'm sure, is a one-word name, and it's the name of Pazuzu's wife in the Mesopotamian folklore of Pazuzu existing. Because Pazuzu, as in the demon that like possesses Reagan in Exorcist 1, apparently his wife was fucking worse. And she was blamed for miscarriages and stuff and all that carry on. So people would give offerings to Pazuzu in the hope that he'd have a word with his wife so that she wouldn't come around and steal babies, basically. And I'm sure that I've seen her name come up in the credits and somebody playing her. So maybe I've missed that. Maybe, maybe that's... Because the thing is, this is a trilogy. The Blumhouse have bought this as a trilogy. So we've got Believer out now. In 2 years, I think it's Deceiver. And then 2 years after that is Redeemer. So it's going to be a trilogy, this Exorcist franchise, all within the Exorcist canon. And I'm excited to see where it goes. It can only get better from a person who wants to see the canon explored further. In my opinion, it can only get better. But as a standalone film, it's good. It is a good film. It's worth a watch. Definitely worth a watch. Even if you haven't seen the original Exorcist, you kind of don't need to have, in all honesty, because they, as I say, it's not that much within canon. It's not like, I'm trying to think, it's not like you have to have watched the first Star Wars to know what's happening in the second Star Wars. Do you know what I mean? And I've never watched Star Wars, so I don't know whether that's relevant. But do you know what I mean? It's not like it. You can watch it standalone. So currently, my review for The Exorcist Believer, it's a very tentative, one thumb up, a bit out, and one thumb sideways. And I need to rewatch it, and I need to let it settle, because it's Monday, and I only watched it 2 days ago. So, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think anyway when you get to see it. But, yeah, one thumb slightly out and up, and one thumb out and sideways. Put it this way, if I went out like this, and I'm doing it now as I'm saying it, and if I went out in the street like this, I'd be arrested and placed in a home. Anyway, what we're going to do now, we're not going to have a paranormal story from one of our listeners because of the reasons I explained earlier. We're instead going to have an elongated Becca's Reddit Corner with a fantastic tale we were told by a taxi driver when we left The Exorcist Believer.
Ladies and gentlemen, now it is time for Paranormal Reddit Corner with Becca.
So here we are once again in it's not a basement, it's not a dwelling of horror or evil. It is a beautiful place, but it is scary.
It is scary.
And it is owned by none other than Becca.
Hello.
Becca's here. Hooray.
Hooray.
You're going away again, aren't you?
I am.
So I think, if my maths are correct, which I believe they are, that next week's Reddit Corner would be your last for that week.
Yes, I should only be missing one.
Should only be missing one, yes. But we'll miss you.
I mean, I say this, but last time I went away, when I rang you for a chat, you had me doing a Reddit Corner from there, didn't you?
Oh, that's true, yeah, so you never know.
Yeah.
So today's film review, I'd done The Exorcist, which we both watched.
Did you?
Didn't? Yeah.
Was it, how was your review?
Well...
I mean, don't just, repeat everything you said, but...
I haven't said anything yet, because I'm doing this before I do the review.
Right, okay.
So I'm kind of
will it be positive?
A bit back to front. Well, you know me in spoilers, so I'm not going to give any spoilers away.
I know you're almost certainly going to give a spoiler away.
Yeah.
You struggle to talk about something without doing spoilers. Try not to, though.
I'll try not to. So, with you not being as knowledgeable about The Exorcist as I am...
How dare you?
But you're not.
I know a lot about The Exorcist. Yeah, no, okay, not about The Exorcist. It's Amazable, I know.
Yeah.
Bloody everything about,
exactly,
isn't it?
Yeah.
And Janet.
Exactly, yeah. So, as a standalone film...
Mm.
Given that have you watched The Exorcist?
I feel like I've kind of absorbed it as a kid.
So you think you've watched it through osmosis, like me with Star Wars?
Yeah, I don't remember actually sitting down, but I know a lot about it.
Like if someone says Jabba the Hutt, I'll be like, oh Jabba, oh, but I've never watched Star Wars. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Okay. And
it's really upset a lot of Star Wars fans out there.
Yeah, I do that because that's how he speaks. I wouldn't, it's like, do you watch Star Wars? What would you think?
It was all right. Yeah. The thing is, I don't like scary films, as a general. So I was dreading it a bit. But it was all right. I found it kind of tolerable. I would say, at the kind of the first half or maybe third, I was struggling with that was quite scary. And I think it's fair to say that it moves on from tension into kind of gruesomeness.
Yes, a lot of people have said this,
and I can handle that a lot more. That doesn't really bother me that much.
Yeah.
Whereas the tension is kind of what gets me, and you kind of were like, oh, because we went to the cinema to see it, and there were a few times where just a normal thing happened, but because I was so tense, I jumped a mile.
Yeah.
And I had to be really strategic with my drink because I had a glass of prosecco tonight.
Yeah.
That doesn't have a lid, so I had to be really strategic when I picked it up because I thought if I jump,
you had to wait for what was guaranteed to be a calm scene.
Yeah, it's just going to go everywhere all over me. But yeah, as I said, towards the second half, it kind of went into more horror, gore territory than tension.
Yeah.
Which I found more tolerable, and that'll be entirely dependent on people's preferences, whether they like that or they don't like that. Some people love that about horrors, don't they? So.
Yeah, I agree. I've never been a gory horror film thing because 9 times out of 10 they're not based on fact.
Yeah. I thought it was okay. I liked the story. I liked the different characters. I liked that Aaron Burr was in it. Excuse me, are you Aaron Burr, sir?
So that's someone from Hamilton.
Well, sure, sir.
Yeah. A lot of people have said that it's an up and down.
I thought it was fairly well rounded. Like different people had different stories, kind of bring them together. It was fairly realistic in in a few ways. It wasn't just a load of people weren't just 1D kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, my review that people will have heard by now, I'll have already said everything that I needed to say. The only thing I'll reiterate is I thought they could have done a lot more. There were a lot of times when I was like, why didn't you just do this? You for example, if somebody, well, I won't repeat myself, but if somebody like done a cherry, said, I've made a Bakewell tart out there, and it was a cupcake version, and there was no cherry on top, I'd be like, why haven't you put a cherry on top of this? Why don't you just do that?
Yeah.
I
like that it wasn't like solely kind of completely on the Christianity thing as well, that there was other elements. That was good.
I see. Anyway.
Okay. Well, you were asking me, I wasn't asking you.
No, it's a good point. It's a fair point. I appreciate your opinion on it. Anyway, we'll come back to that, actually. In fact, I'm thinking, will we come back to that, or will we bring that story? Should we save that for something else? Anyway, let me think on that. Whilst in the meantime, I pass you Reddit Corner.
Da-da-da-da.
Da-da-da-da.
Welcome to Reddit Corner with Becca.
Hooray!
The title of this story is Was a Believer, but this made me believe in it 100%.
So, okay.
So no change.
Yeah. Do you believe in ghosts? Oh, yeah. But something happened that made me really believe in it.
100% believe. Okay. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Exclamation mark. So we're off to a very welcoming and chirpy start.
I like that.
I've had experiences before, but could always explain it away. Cold spots, footsteps, shadows, etc. As a kid, I lived in a house I believe was haunted, and had a lot of strange instances. Didn't truly believe it until I talked to my stepmother at the time, and said that she had also had experiences. Sorry, I'm lost. Were you a believer or not? This is getting very...
Yeah,
it was haunted. Yeah. I believed it was haunted. Strange incident, but then didn't truly believe it. But we're back and forth here.
It's common to second guess yourself, isn't it?
Okay, fair enough. My father is sceptic as hell, but even he said that place had something wrong with it. Whatever, could just say because I was a kid. Cold spots can be many things, yada yada.
Yada yada.
So with this, I've always believed in spirits, but had never truly felt like I had a fully transparent experience.
Okay.
Did they mean transparent there?
I don't think they mean transparent.
Okay.
I think they mean obvious, blatant, sort of thing.
That was until a few years back.
Dun dun dun.
My friends and I were all 19 at the time and were at one of the friends' houses. It was just the three of us, and we've been friends since we were really young. So we all were and are very close. It was very late, and my one friend, let's call him Nate, the owner of the house, had fallen asleep. So it was just my one friend and I left. All of a sudden, she's getting messages from Nate's family that he needed to check his phone because they needed to talk to him. Long story short, Nate's mother had gotten into an accident and passed.
Jesus.
Dear gracious.
That took a turn.
Certainly did. We stayed with Nate until his family came over and then headed home to give them space. One friend and I, let's call them Oliver, went back to my house, sat in the car and talked. We were in shock and wanted to be together to work through the tragedy together. Sorry if that sounds silly, but I'm not quite sure how to preface that moment.
No, fair enough. There's no right or wrong in that moment.
Oliver and I kept talking about how much we love Nate's mum and were praying for her, saying how much everyone cares for her and how we can't believe that she's gone. All of a sudden, my body went haywire. Goosebumps all over, and my body felt completely weightless. I then started to feel something rush through me, and tears instantaneously start flowing. No control, and it truly felt like an energy floated through me. I turned to Oliver and told them what had just happened, with tears still running down, when they say they watched it happen. They swore they saw a shadow behind me in the back seat when it first started happening. We both believe it was Nate's mother visiting us to tell us she was okay now.
Interesting.
They keep saying, what happened? I'm not kind of getting exactly what happened, you know what I mean, aside from the feelings that they've had.
Well, they're saying they're talking about the passing of the mother and they're trying to get their heads around her, having a chat in the car by the sounds of it, given the backseat comment. And she's felt a bit weird.
Yeah, she's felt a bit weird. I turned to Oliver, told him what happened. And tears still running down when Oliver says, yeah, I watched it happen. Watched what happened. Watched how you felt happen.
No, this shadow appear in the back of the car.
Right, okay. Sorry if this is long-winded, and I don't mean to sound insensitive to the very horrible situation, but it's so hard to describe that experience as anything other than incredible, and like Nate's mum was there saying goodbye. Thank you for listening, if you've made it this far. Oh, this is the first post they've ever made, and I hope they're going to be able to share more in the future.
Well, hopefully not, if it's to do with that. You know what I mean? It's unless they mean like as in like, I like dogs, as opposed to, so Satan came to visit me last night. Mm-hmm. Any comments? I know it's relatively fresh.
Someone said, paranormal, I can't say yes or no, but only a good human would feel empathy like that. You're a good human.
Yeah, I agree. And this is the thing, and it's common, and it's, it's something quite prevalent personally going on. And also with friends of mine in the last year. It's this thing about what you do. If you're the outsider of a situation where somebody's losing or someone's lost someone, there's a sense as an outsider of doing right or wrong. Mm. Do you know what I mean? And making the right or wrong decision. Yeah. And I'm a big believer that there is no right or wrong decision. I mean, to the extreme. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, for example, if somebody loses a parent and you turn up with flowers and balloons and a cake and say, sorry to hear about your parents.
Well, flowers is actually very appropriate.
I know, that's why I had to have balloons in cake. I realised. But there's no right or wrong. As long
even independently, taking cake on its own would also be acceptable.
Yeah, but collectively. And they're also dressed as a clown. Okay. Is that all right? Is that individually, would that be okay?
Only dressed as a clown, because I would appreciate balloons.
Yeah. Would you forgive the clown outfit? If say if you had a family member pass away, and not me, because that'd be weird. Someone that you know dressed up as a clown alone and knocked to offer condolences, would you then? I think that's crossed the boundary from there is no right and wrong.
It is, unless they are a professional clown and have dropped in on the way back from work.
Okay. How about if they're not a professional clown, but they are carrying balloons? Because they know you like balloons.
Well, I'd be happy with the balloons.
But would you be highly questionable about why they're dressed as a clown?
If they're not a professional clown, yes.
Then yeah, fair enough. That seems right. But I do think it's all about intent, and I think there's no right or wrong. Yeah. And everyone should remember that when they're trying to offer messages of condolence, I think.
Yeah, I actually think that a lot of time when people say, oh, I don't know what to say, and so they didn't say anything, that's actually worse. The wrong... Yeah, you're saying there's no right or wrong, but I think no acknowledgement is worse than clumsy acknowledgement.
Yeah, yeah. I completely agree with that, yeah. Yeah, so it's an interesting one, that. Very interesting indeed. Very interesting indeed. Now, I was going to save this. This was what I was debating. I was going to save this for the Patreon episode. And then I thought, no, you know what? As we were mid-telling that, I thought, no, we may as well share it on this because, I don't want to be one of those people, oh, you have to check Patreon to hear what we were going to say, sort of thing. I mean, by all means, do check Patreon because we're about to record a Patreon about haunted, I think it's churches. Haunted churches, but it's to do with witches and all stuff. Very Halloweeny. Very good. Go and sign up to Patreon.
And the Patreons have the same high level of professionalism, clearly, as Reddit Corner does.
But for me, what was kind of more interesting and more scary than the Exorcist film was our taxi journey back.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about this.
So when we get into the taxi, the lad's sound, he's scoused through and through.
Yeah, quite young, isn't he?
Quite young. And he's like, oh, what have you been doing with your night then? 'Cause it was a Friday night. Yeah. And we're like, oh, we just went to watch that Exorcist 3. Oh, was it any good? So I was like, so...
Just to jump in, he's more like, oh, what have you just been doing with your Friday night then, wasn't he? He was like the strongest of the Scouse accents.
So anyway, he goes, do you believe in all that then? Like, so I thought, oh, aye, yeah. So I went, yeah, I do, she doesn't. So anyway, he goes, have you ever seen a ghost?
Now, you always know where this is leading.
Now I'm thinking, here we go. I'm like... not what I'd say, I couldn't definitively say yes. I think I've been in the presence of, the other side, but I haven't seen a ghost. So Becca says, have you? And he goes, yeah. And we're like, what? Like, this, like, in a nice way, proper scally lad is saying, yeah, he's seen a ghost. Like, you just look like he's driving like a BMW or something. He's clearly in, like, designer club. He's top head. Do you know what I mean? He's like, yeah, I've seen a ghost. So he goes on to regale a tale that there's basically we've talked before, and we've done even a special before in St James's graveyard in the middle of Liverpool city centre.
Yeah, in the grounds of the Anglican Cathedral.
Yeah, in the grounds of the Anglican Cathedral. Now, there's around 70,000 bodies buried there due to both workhouses, not to do with the plague, unbelievably, to do with workhouses, a lot of Irish famine victims.
It's where that... Was it Jenny Greenfingers or Green Teeth or something?
Ginny Green Teeth myth comes from.
Yeah, it's there, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's like 70,000 bodies buried there anyway. But to get... there's like the Anglican Cathedral, which is beautiful, and to the left there's a little tunnel, and when you go down that tunnel, you're then in the graveyard of old. Like, there's no new burials taking place there. It's like a garden now, a huge garden, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Just with all old gravestones, like we're talking 1700s and earlier, and I think the eldest is 1912 maybe. Anyway, and there's a path that leads right through to the other side of the Anglican Cathedral to a street known as Upper Parliament Street.
Yeah, so you can walk from Duke Street or Upper Duke Street,
through that
Street
graveyard
without having to go up and round.
Yeah, so it's a shortcut basically. Now he said him and his girlfriend one night. She suggested going through this graveyard to save time. Yeah,
well, she said, what do you want to do? Do you want to cut through the graveyard? It's quicker. Or do you want to go the long way? Yeah. And he said, well, you know, I had to like be the big man and front it out, didn't I? Yeah, and I was like, no, Sam, go the quick way, go the quick way.
We'll just do the quick way, Sam. And he said, but as soon as he started going through the tunnel, he was thinking, what have I fucking done here? Yeah. Like, anyway, he said they get to more or less the end of the path, which brings you out through some double gates to Upper Parliament Street. Now, this part in particular, it's very overgrown on both sides of the path, and it's like overgrown to the point where there are gravestones sticking out of the overgrownness. It's relatively well tended now, but anyway, he says stood behind one of the gravestones. And this is what was so believable about it, is that he didn't know what the person was wearing. He had to describe it, and we had to tell him what it was.
Yeah, so first of all, he says him and his girlfriend, his girlfriend's holding his hand, and they're like, you know, squeeze it a bit tight because they're both a bit freaks. But then suddenly she grabs his hand really tight. So he looks at her, she's not looking at him, she's looking off like to the right or whatever. So he follows her gaze and sees this thing.
Yeah. He said, and it's a really old woman. He said, and she's wearing like this like cloth thing around her head.
Yeah, he went, I don't know what you call it.
Don't know what you call it. And I was like, was it a bonnet? And he went, no. Like, so I said, was it tied under the neck? He went, under the chin. And he went, yeah, that's it. Yeah, it was white. He said, and she's wearing like this white, like, I don't know what you'd call it again. So I'm like, was it like...
He said it wasn't a wedding dress, but it was like...
It wasn't a wedding dress now. Was it like a shawl? Like And he went, yeah, that's exactly what it was like. So it sounds like somewhat like a Victorian death shroud is what it sounds like, with a bonnet. This is another... So the fact he couldn't describe... You know what I mean? He didn't have words to describe what she was wearing.
Yeah.
Gave it an air of authenticity. But then also this, he said, what was she doing? He said she just had both her hands on top of the gravestone, and she was looking off to the right, towards the right-hand side of the path. And as I say, if you're making a story up, she's looking back at you. Do you know what I mean? You're running away. I said, so what did you do?
And then she walks, doesn't she? She left it. He said she walks back. She said she started off behind the gravestone and then walks out, like looking elsewhere. Walked towards off.
Where she was looking.
Yeah. No, walked somewhere else. Like just walked off.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't recall that bit. I just remember him saying he looked back and he didn't see anything, but his missus reckons she's seen it rise up from behind the gravestone.
Yeah, so that's how she first saw him. So he didn't see. So. Yeah, because he only got onto it once his girlfriend was already onto it. But his girlfriend, like later said, that when she first saw her, she rose came up from behind the gravestone. And now, in fairness, that sounds petrifying. The idea of like popping up slowly like yeah.
But the fact she had a hand on the gravestone, implies that's hers. Now, what I've said we should do...
Does it? I was going to say it implies that the gravestone was there when she was alive.
How'd you figure?
Because if she's familiar with those surroundings, you know, like how they reckon that ghosts kind of, if ghosts walk through walls, there would have been a door there when they lived there.
Right, yeah.
Like that, if she's kind of if she's just going where she would adapt to how it was when she was there. So if she's familiar with the gravestone, that it would be there.
I would say, my point of view on it would be, given she seems to be in a death shroud sort of thing, that's her gravestone. Now,
I think I'm right on this. You know,
I think I'm right on this, and you know why? I referred you because we had a big discussion about this. There's a painting, a very famous, it's a drawing really of. You can Google it, of Edward Kelly and John Dee doing some necromancy. And they're stood in a protective circle. And the thing they've brought up from the dead is exactly the attire, more or less, what this lad's describing. And that's what's amazing as well, is that he's not seen that picture.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He doesn't know what he's describing. But I think if we went to the graveyard, I know exactly what he's talking about, and looked at those gravestones. One of them will be A, of that time, and B, a female. So we should do that. Anyway, but yeah, I found his whole story, and we're talking about an 8-minute taxi drive, much more intriguing than the film.
Yeah, but you also find like real life ghost stories more intriguing than fiction anyway.
Well, that's true.
I think that would be the case about any film.
Yeah, that is true.
Because before we got out, I kind of said, like, no, so what was she wearing? And that was it. And I was just waiting. The one thing that didn't swing it for me, because I thought it always bloody is. And I was thinking in my head, was it Victorian? Was it Victorian? And he went, she's dressed like Victorian. I was like, yeah, always Victorian. Yeah,
but also, as I say...
Why are the ghosts always Victorian?
But she's rising up from like a Victorian gravestone.
Yeah, I know, but just all the ghosts are always Victorian. I'm sick of it. Like, why is there never...
No, we've had this very conversation. When we went to Blackburn House and we were doing the ghost hunt, they said one of the ghosts seen is of a young lad in a Ben Sherman shirt.
No, that was a real man wandering around, like, as part of the night. And then he tried to make out like he might have been a ghost when he was seen, because there was no activity. Someone was like, did you see that man in the check shirt? She was like... Yeah, and they said there'd be no one else up here. So it was a real man. Everyone saw the real man. They were trying to make out like he might have been a ghost. No, that's definitely what happened.
Anyway, on this disagreement, thank you for allowing us into your corner.
You're welcome.
And do you want to say...
Oh yeah, that's right. This is my corner. Where I say goes.
Yes, you can sign us off.
Thank you for visiting Reddit Corner with Becca.
Thanks, Becca.
Bye, guys.
See you now.